I'll start off with a little bit about myself, who I am, what I'm about, my priorities, and then we'll go on to questions. So I'd like to spend a lot of time on questions because I'd like to get to know you all. I want to know what your concerns are and what your issues are. And a good way to do that is a question and answer. So, to start out, my name is Nicholas Tellez. My friends call me Nick. I was born and raised in a little town called Solomon, Arizona. It is in the southeastern part of our district, so 2 hours from where we are now, east. Okay, it is Graham County, and I was actually born in Morenci in Greenlee County, but that was because it was a company hospital, and my father was employed with Phelps Scotch, and a teacher's assistant at our local school. So went to grade school there, graduated from the local high school, attempted college for about 10 years, and I've got a ton of credits, but no degrees, except my associate's degree. So after about 16 years of chasing my dream of owning a restaurant and having my own business, I moved back home to do that. And I purchased a restaurant, the restaurant that I started working at when I was 12 years old as a dishwasher. So after 13 years, 7 years of that, we closed the restaurant down and we moved on. So I moved back home to accomplish my dream. I moved back home to help my parents out, and all the while I have been...
They were all farmers. They all lived on the outskirts of town, and I went to their farms. And I watched them raise poultry chickens and soybeans and a little sweet corn. And I know what it's like to live like that. I know what it's like to be on a fixed income. I know what it's like to have to worry about how you're protecting your home as you age. My great-grandparents were young adults, young family in the depths of the Great Depression. So their nest egg was healthy when they hit their golden years because they had that dedicated savings mindset coming out of the Great Depression. But what ended up happening is my great-grandfather got sick, and then he passed, my great-grandmother got sick, and she had to go to nursing care, and everything that they had worked for went to that until it came time that Medicare would actually take care of them because at that point she was destitute. I joined the Army. I needed to see the world. I wanted to serve my country. I was the dorkiest kid in Boy Scouts who was offended that other people out in not the United States couldn't vote for people that they choose to vote for. That they didn't have the freedom of choice that we have in America. And I joined the Army and I came out to Arizona for the first time in 1997 and did some training at the fort, and I fell in love. I had never seen stars like the Arizona sky. I had never seen sunsets. The monsoons had just started as I was about to pack up training and move to my first duty station, and I ended up seeing sunsets that I'd never imagined. And I knew that I wanted to come back. I enjoyed the lifestyle. I enjoyed what Arizona had to offer. And over the course of the next 23 years, I came back 3 more times. The last time in 2014, and we bought a house. And I've put down roots here. I've now graduated 2 from Arizona Public Schools, from the schools up in Vail. I've got 1 more who is finishing up junior year right now, 17. Just turned 17 on Tuesday. So that's my background. I did my time in the Army. I went to Afghanistan. I did silly things with the Special Forces guys. I did all kinds of adventures. I went to Kosovo for peacekeeping. And I learned a lot about what it takes to be on a team. I learned a lot about what it takes to interact with other people in a place of honesty and feeling genuine about how you're dealing with your fellow human beings. And I'm seeing this deterioration in one of our major political parties in this country, that they are abandoning the things that they said they stood for the better part of the last century. I was president of my college Republican club. I was president of my college Republican club because I believed that character mattered and because I was pro-small business. I wasn't as hardline on some of the social conservative stuff when I was a youth. And the Army made me more liberal. Because in the Army, you're not insulated with groups of people that are just like you. You are dealing with a melting pot like America is. And when you come from a small town in Maryland where there's very little diversity, you don't have that exposure. You don't understand that there are other perspectives that you need to take into account. You don't understand, you don't know necessarily that the other people have good ideas too. And that kind of changed the way I thought about the world and how I've grown in my viewpoint. I'm here today to talk about democracy. I love democracy. I have served the country. We are one of the only countries on the planet that our armed forces does not take an oath to the president, does not take an oath to a leader or a party. We take an oath to the Constitution. And that fidelity to the Constitution is what sets us apart in many ways in our national ethic. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the local level. Are we serving each other with fidelity to democracy? We have outright election deniers serving the state legislature, serving in county boards in Cochise, 2 under felony indictment right now. And it boggles my imagination that our neighbors continue to support some of these individuals. Our job and my hope as part of this campaign is to engage with our neighbors that don't agree with us. Because that makes a healthy democracy. That's what allows us to grow as a state and as a community in a positive direction. I'm, like Nick, a huge fan of public education. I think it's the great equalizer. If everybody gets an equal shot. And I think that that's something that Republicans mischaracterize about Democrats. We don't necessarily want equal outcomes for everyone. We want equal opportunity for everyone. And they want to change that. Thank you very much, Matt. They want to twist that. They don't understand what that really means. And only through good public education are we going to make sure that everybody gets an equal shot. Spending money on these school vouchers that are going to primarily be taxpayer subsidies for private schools, taxpayer subsidies for religious schools, is not the way to support our local communities. It's certainly not going to benefit rural communities who are not going to have stand-up Christian academies or charter schools that are going to be suddenly built by corporations in their, town of Clifton or Sierra Vista or Benson or wherever. The water crisis in Benson, I found out about through 60 Minutes in, 2018, I think is when they ran that story. And I've been paying attention to that for a couple of years now. And to hear that Gail Griffin will not even bring a bill for hearing in her committee that talks about just reporting. That we've got no reporting requirements for how much water is being pumped out of the ground by some of these commercial operations. We're not even talking about limiting. We're talking about reporting. So we know how much water is coming out of the ground. That's a focus that I have, and I want to talk about rural healthcare. We are not incentivizing healthcare providers to serve rural communities. We are not setting up rural communities for success with telehealth services. We don't have a strong... We are finally getting money from the federal government and through the infrastructure plans that the president has passed with the help of bipartisan support in Congress for rural broadband. Rural broadband is going to help equalize rural health care. That's going to be one of the key factors in improving access to rural health care is going to be rural broadband. And we've got to make sure that it comes at the, that everyone has the opportunity to have rural broadband without impediments and privatized interests taking advantage and deciding who's going to get served by rural broadband. And then I'm going to talk about democracy. It's not a popular issue necessarily at the local level, but I want to make sure that people understand that when we're talking about a political party who has abandoned democratic allies around the world and is pushing ideas that somehow the president was illegitimately elected, anything that we can do to push back against those ideas, anything that we can do to push back against those lies, that's where I'm going to be. That's me in a nutshell. I would be happy to take your questions.
Hudson Bay is having a big mining operation going into circulation sooner than not. They're going to be using a lot of water and
Yes.
devastating our water supplies. Anything you would like to comment on? Mining is king in Arizona, has been for years.
And that's,
comment?
You know, there. I actually applied to. I had an interesting time when I retired from the Army. I applied to a lot of jobs, trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my next act. And I applied to a couple of mining companies to understand. And I had some moral qualms. You know, look, I get we've got to get these resources out of the ground. That's non-negotiable. We have to have these resources, especially with what's going to happen with electric vehicles and lithium batteries and that sort of thing in the next 30, 50 years. We've got to get to these resources. But there are ways to do it more responsibly. There are ways to make it, you know, Hexagon Mining doesn't need to make 25 cents a share every single quarter. They'll be fine at 20 cents a share every quarter. But what the residents in those areas, they're not going to be fine if the water gets pumped out of the ground. If there's devastation to the ecological systems and the flora and fauna of southern Arizona that make what of the things that make southern Arizona so unique, those things are unacceptable. So I think it's about striking that balance and ensuring that corporations understand that they have to protect those resources if they want to do business in Arizona.
What are your thoughts regarding promoting and supporting jobs and employment?
I would love to see things that we can do to make it easier for small businesses. You know, Nick was talking about healthcare. Back east, I don't know, I've only seen a couple on the West Coast. Does anybody know what IGA is? Independent Grocers Association? Okay. Why don't we have a whole bunch of restaurants have an alliance so they can bargain for healthcare? That's going to make it easier for them to hire workers. That's going to be able to make it easier to, you know, for them to grow their small businesses. Things like that we can incentivize at the state level without having hands down and saying this is how you're going to manage. We can do a lot more incentives and incentive structures to support small businesses without having to go overboard in regulation. So that would be my approach on how we handle some of those things. Jeannie.
But don't you think if you can bring in broadband even to rural areas, it can inspire some companies I mean, John Kerry said it when he was running for president.
Right.
With broadband, you could have medical research out in the middle of nowhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I can't work without broadband. I'm a home worker. I have to have broadband to do my job because I'm downloading spreadsheets, I'm on teleconferences. That's my role. I don't know that I could work successfully in some of the places in our district. That's insane. That I can't live anywhere in the district, that I have to be, you know, close enough to someplace that has broadband. You have, and I don't know what the situation is in Arizona. I know in some states, as local towns said, we are being underserved by our local cable company or our local phone company. We've got, you know, we can put in our own line and charge everybody in town. A town up in Colorado did this about a decade ago. Charge everybody in town $35. They've got better service than what they can get from the cable company. Faster internet than what they can get for the cable company. What did the businesses do? They went to the state legislature, the party of small government, and said, local towns aren't allowed to do this anymore. Outlawed it. So what are those incentive structures for towns to treat internet like water, like electricity? Because it is absolutely, broadband now is the electrification of America in the early 20th century. It is absolutely the same thing. It is absolutely going to change people's lives for the better. And we've got to support it country nationwide. And it's going to have to, you know, in this district, it's critical. Any other questions?
Where are you living now?
I live in Vail, so I'm on the bleeding edge of the district, just outside of Tucson. In fact, I'm in that. If you see the LD19 map and the graphic, there's this like little notch on the north side of I-10. Yeah, that's my house. That little notch is my house. That's it. Yes, no, it's ridiculous. So Rancho Del Lago, if you guys know where Del Lago Golf Course is, that's where I live. And that Del Lago Golf Course and that very immediate surrounding development, that's the only part of LD19 that's north of I-10 on this side of the map.
You're in what, Graham County?
Pima.
Pima.
Yeah.
Pima.
Yes.
Greg, how are you going to rationalize, you know, given your location, rationalize your philosophy and your approach with immigration issues?
I don't understand. We got a bipartisan agreement out of Langford of Oklahoma. The fact that he's supporting the bill that's right now stalled in Congress is supposed to be one of the things that alleviates this. I'm hopeful that they get it done this year. I'm hopeful. It really is supporting these people that are coming over here with asylum claims. Some of them are legitimate. Some of them are a mechanism to be able to get into the country in order that they can make money and send it back home. You know, and I get it. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. So having these, being overwhelmed in terms of resources, the messaging that we have to send is, if you have legitimate asylum claim, you are welcome here. If you want to come here and support our economy and send money back home, that's okay too, but here's where your place in the line is. How we can do that at the state level, supporting that messaging, a lot of that's going to be dependent on flipping the state legislature. Because Governor Hobbs is hamstrung by the Republican legislature. She can't do a lot of things that she could be doing at the state level outside of executive orders, which aren't as powerful, obviously, as the power of law. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it's a very broad question, and I know you're in anywhere around here that you're running for office.
Right.
You're going to be attacked by the opposition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Greg. Everybody else give him a big hand.
While we're waiting for the slides, I want to go off script.
There is a true pioneer in the room today. The last elected Democrat from Cochise County at the state legislature. Unfortunately, that was 2010. Pat Fleming represented Cochise County in 2010. She is the last elected Democrat from Cochise, from what now is LD 19. Pat, please stand up. So that's how difficult it is, just so you know. So thank you for having me. While George is picking up stuff off the floor, we were going to do another slide, but run. I'll stick on this slide for a moment. So we're going to talk a little bit about flipping the state legislature. You've heard both Nick and Gregg talk about it. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself, because I've run twice before, but not in this district, in the old LD 14, which did not include Green Valley. So in 2018, I ran against Becky Nutt and Gail Griffin. You may not know Becky. You probably know who Gail is. I came in 4th out of 4. Okay. In 2020, I ran against David Gowan in the old LD 14. I came in 2nd out of 2. Okay, so 3rd time's the charm, right? Yeah. So in 2024, I'm running against David Gowan again. We are optimistic, and we're going to do great things this time. So we can do another slide. A little bit about me. I started working through college at UCLA. I'm a UCLA graduate. I was introduced in another meeting as a USC graduate. And for those of you who are on UCLA, this is about the worst thing that can happen to you. So, and the person who introduced me to that is actually sitting in the front row, so you can throw things at her later. I got a degree in political science. I went on to starting to work in politics at UCLA. My first campaign was working for Eugene McCarthy. And there's enough people here that know who Eugene McCarthy is. Right? That was my first campaign. And the point of the campaign for Eugene McCarthy, the point I want to make now, is that a strong voice that was passionate about an issue made a tremendous change, right? I mean, he actually started the movement to get Lyndon Johnson to not run for re-election. So we can do things with a single voice. After I graduated from college, I ran a political campaign for a Los Angeles city council person who did not get elected. That seems to be my trend.
In the past.
Yeah, it's in the past, yes. It's in the way past, just so you know. I then went on to running an aerospace machine shop in Southern California, precision machine shop. After that, I did that for about 18 years. Stopped that because of recessions and the cyclical nature of aerospace. And I opened up a software development company. And I'm mentioning the software development company because we started with 2 people, and ultimately I had 50 some odd employees with a $2.5 million payroll. Now the point I'm making about this is, you hear from Republicans that Democrats don't know what it means to meet a payroll. You heard Nick talking about it, and I'm telling you, we met a $2.5 million payroll. So I understand what small business is about, and I understand what business is about. I retired to Cochise County in 2005, sort of got hit by the dot-com bubble, lost the company actually. And I came down here, down there, here is here, down there is down there, right? And there's actually a difference about that. And I moved down to Cochise County, and my neighbor who built the house that I bought said, you know, you'd really be great in real estate. 2009, I got my real estate license. Really good timing. I'm profound on these things, I have to tell you. So I got my real estate license. 3 years later, I opened a brokerage which specialized in property management. And the point I'm making here is I was also president of the Southeastern Arizona Association of Realtors and the MLS. I am a business person. We are not going to let Republicans tell Democrats who you are and that you are not, your voice isn't important. So you look at my resume on paper and I look like a Republican, right? Yeah. And all the people in the real estate industry thought I was a Republican before I got elected as president. So it's clear that the Democratic Party has a lot of different people in it who bring different things to the election and to our state. Let's move on, please. Back. Yeah, we're going to play a little game. This is about flipping and this is audience participation. The first question is, since 1978, how many years has the state Senate been controlled by Democrats?
Zero.
None.
One.
Very close. One. Okay. Same question now for the State House. How many years has the State House been controlled by Democrats? Next slide, please. Okay, this is the sad story. It's 0. So you see all the red, and I only went out to 2023 because it fit nice and evenly. So if I added that, it wouldn't look good, right? So the point is, when Republicans talk about, oh, the state is terrible, right? Oh, they've run it. They've run it for 48 years. Let's be honest. And it's more important than that, because what they believe is they will continue to run it. That's an important element of what this next election is about. The election is about, can we get control? Because we need to make changes. Can I have the next slide, please? So Nick and Gregg sort of mentioned Gail Griffin, and I'm going to take it a little farther. Gail Griffin, these are committee chairs. Just a small little smattering of the people that I wanted to talk about. You know about Gail Griffin, and she's well known for killing any potential water reform legislation as a committee chair. Committee chairs can kill bills. They just don't hold hearings on them. Wendy Rogers, State Senator Wendy Rogers, many of you probably know who she is. She is the chair of the Elections Committee. She is an election denier, a QAnon advocate, and an oath keeper. So think about, she's running the Committee on Elections. David Gowan, whom I will be running on, he's military affairs. I have no idea what he knows about the military. There are so many people, wonderful people in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party who have served. He has not served. Public safety and border security, these are things he can demagogue. And Lupe Diaz was mentioned. He is not a chair because he's really a freshman in the House. He's only been in there, he was appointed to fill a vacancy, and he's been elected once. He, as a chair of what's called a referral committee, so, but he has some influence, and we'll talk about it in a moment. Just a little bit more about Gowan. He signed on to the idea that the state legislature would pick electors. Really? Yeah. So that's where we are on date. Can we have the next slide, please? I'm going to talk a little bit about concurrent resolutions. You may not know what they are.
We did.
For those of you that are in the know, a concurrent resolution is something that is brought to either the House or the Senate. If it gets passed by both, it goes directly onto the ballot without a veto, without the governor being able to veto it. So I'm mentioning a couple things here that I just thought you would enjoy. Gowan has proposed banning at-large city council districts, which is what we have in Sierra Vista, by the way, and also ranked choice voting. Now, I don't know that anybody's doing ranked choice voting, but the point is, why are we interfering and preempting cities from experimenting and trying to figure out the best way to represent their constituents? So this is a pattern. Gowan also, and this one you'll really like, he wants to propose that judges will get a lifetime appointment. They will not have to go back on the ballot, and it's retroactive. Okay, why? because we have a Democratic governor now.
Right.
And they're scared to death that, my gosh, she may get a chance to appoint somebody that might actually represent a different viewpoint. Griffin, whom you are well aware of, but I wanted to bring up a fun fact for her. She wants to ban counties from banning gas cars or gas stoves. So it's a double negative. Ban. This is what in her mind is important. That, you know, let's worry about that. Loopy has a really interesting idea. He proposed a bill to stop private parties from donating land to the federal government. Now you say, well, what's he doing? Well, they don't want to put it in a monument, in a park. I mean, this again, as Gregg said and Nick has said, is this the party of small government? Hardly. Next slide. This is crazy time in the state senate. This was to give you really a good viewpoint of what's going on. This is a concurrent resolution, and I'm going to read the second part of it. It's about Marxist ideologies. It would stop the bills to prevent public funds from being used for ideas including reducing motor vehicle traffic with bike lanes or public transit, limiting greenhouse emissions, that's okay, reducing meat or dairy consumption. This is something that they think is important. And the point I want to make is, they put this as a bill. It will never get past Hobbs, let's be sure. But at the same time, they put it as a concurrent resolution. That tells you what they're thinking. What they're thinking is, we can get away with this. It's time to not let them get away with it. So again, I've been talking about flipping the state legislature, and we're getting to the meat of this now. So next slide. So I talk about mainstream values, and this is a whole list of things, and I won't go through them. You can sort of read fast. But I do want to talk about why I'm running, and I'm running as a Democrat who believes that we are the party of mainstream values. This is nonsense to be bullied into thinking that we aren't. Look at the things that we're in favor of. We're in favor of personal health care freedom. We're in favor of funding K-12 schools. We believe that voting should be easy and secure. We believe that ESA vouchers are a scam. We believe that the budget should be transparent, the process. It is not in this state. And we believe that you stop environmentally detrimental projects. So we were talking about the Copper World mine, and in Cochise County we have the, I don't know the name of it, but it's the Playa mine, lithium mine. My position on this is absolutely not. The argument is being made that it's a choice between economic development and conservation and water scarcity. That's a nonsense argument. Look at the areas that the mines are potentially going into. They are already tourist destinations because of their pristine area from all over the world. We can make the argument that the economics of it is good the way it is. Those mines will kill the economy of Santa Cruz County and kill part of the county economy up in Wilcox, because where the Playa mine is going, it's right where all the cranes are. You know, where the people come from all over the world to see the cranes. So it's a false argument that it's between economic development and conservation. A couple things that I'll do when I get elected. I used to say if, but I was told don't say when, if. Okay, so I'm going to say when. Okay? And I will say, when I get elected, trust me, the state senate will have flipped. Because there's no way I'm getting in without something big happening and some other people get in as well. So let's just remember that. That's for sure. So, a few things that I want to do. I want to scrap the ESA voucher program. It needs to be scrapped. It needs to be redone, as was discussed, to focus as it originally intended on special needs students who cannot get services from the public school system. We can go into the whole thing. If that can't happen, we need to support, assuming that it comes forward in another year, Governor Hobbs' reforms. More oversight, more transparency, capping how they spend the money, audits, as well as, and this boggles my mind, there is no safety mechanism for students. Anybody who goes to one of these voucher private schools, A, they don't have to be certified, they don't have to do background checks. You have no idea who's in those schools with their children. So that's something I want to work on. I want to codify reproductive health care access. Now we know that the abortion access initiative is going to get on the ballot, and hopefully it gets passed. Even if it gets passed, our work is not done. Because we've seen in other states like Ohio and Wisconsin, what they'll do is they'll just tell their attorney general or somebody, well, we're not going to enforce it. You know, just go ahead and do what you're doing now. So we need to codify, and particularly for contraception, IVF, yeah. So that's important. We can't just rely on the initiative process to solve the problem. I want to file legislation for the ADWR. If you don't know what the ADWR is, the Arizona Department of Water Resources. You heard a little bit about it. We need to have regulation to start to understand what's being pumped. Griffin has not allowed any bill that says for any well over 35 gallons per minute, that's a residential well. Anything over 35 gallons a minute, they should have to each year annually say how much they've pumped. Our first job is to find out what's happening and get the science right. We can talk about the rest of it later, but we can't even get that through the state legislature. So that's on my mind too. I want to change the Senate rules, and I don't know how possible that is, but right now we have this whole problem of killing bills. I want that the minority chair of a minority ranking committee member can introduce up to 5 bills, and they must have hearings on them. We need to be able to have hearings. This idea of just stopping the conversation by refusing to have hearings is ridiculous. And a little side note on that, on water. One of the things that I talked about is, let's have a hearing in Douglas. Let's have a hearing in Wilcox. These people need to come down, and they need to have the entire Water Resources Committee come down. The Attorney General was down in Sunsites, if you know, Sunsites Pearson, which is one of the areas that's really suffering in Cochise County with the water issue. And she got an earful. But the state legislature needs to come down, and they need to have hearings. This idea of not having hearings about bills that you don't like, and Gail Griffin is so in control of that committee. She had one Republican who refused to vote for one of her bills that she put forward. She had him removed from the committee. Yeah, so that tells you something. And I will not vote for any new tax breaks. Period. I was going to use the term read my lips, no new tax breaks. Because I will not vote for, I said this in 2018, I said it in 2020, I'm saying it again. I will not vote for any special interest tax breaks that have gone through that are costing the state hundreds of millions, actually it's in billions of money in tax dollars, until the amount of money, median amount of money that is spent on public school children matches the median nationwide. It was mentioned that we're 48. How can we be 48th? How can anybody who says they run a business say, oh, we're just great, we'll just accept 48th. You know, we're not going to invest. I won't vote for any tax breaks, period. I don't care who they come from, I don't care what they are. Get public education student spending up to the national media. Then I'll talk to you about that. So, I think we can, oh, we're there. Okay, you got there. So, Democrats are the party of mainstream values, I said that. So you see two things here. One, and you've heard it alluded to, currently the state Senate and the state House the Republicans have a 1 vote margin, right? They don't govern that way. They govern as if they had a supermajority. They don't care. They don't want to listen to anybody else. And so we need to flip it. 1 is good. At least we would share power. 2 is great. 2 is very, very good. It's time to make the change. Can we have a new slide? Oh, there. So how do we make the change? Well, it's pretty obvious. There's 3 of us in the room.
Yeah.
1 and 2, right? So your job is really easy, right? Yeah, just 1, 2, we've done it. You know. So it's important to work on this, to try, because flipping allows us to finally get our values spoken to. It allows us to start to govern responsibly, reasonably, and in the interest of all the people in the state. I want to mention one last thing, which I didn't talk about, which was elections. I'm not going to talk about election integrity because I get indeed sort of ticked off about the fact that we can't use election integrity anymore, like we can't use patriotism. Nonsense. We have secure, fair elections. We've had them for years. All of this is nonsense. But the one point I will work on for legislation is to increase the safeguards for election workers and making sure that there are penalties for doxing. There's penalties for intimidation of people at the polls, poll workers, as well as election people in the back office and at the state level. Couple more slides. One more. Oh, too far. There. No? There we go. Okay. So top line. When is $5 equal to $53,000? Great investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what clean elections is all about. And I know a lot of people don't understand the mechanics, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But the idea is for clean elections is you give $5 to a clean elections candidate. The candidate has to get a minimum of $200. He can get a maximum of $240 for the state legislature. And then the state gives the candidate $53,000. And in agreement, we agree not to take money from any other source, period. Family, friends, private, PACs, no one. Once we get the money, we have it. That's it. We have to spend some of it in the primary and the rest of it in the general election, and they audit the hell out of you. You better be able to say you spent every penny the way you're supposed to. This is not to go on a trip to Cancun. So, I want to say Gregg and I are close to the minimum on the quals. We call them quals, and we've been sort of hitting you up for it because, interestingly enough, it's been harder to get the 5s than it has been to get the signatures. So when we finish today, if you haven't given 5, we want to get there, and we want to get there as fast as we can because then we can get the money and use it to buy signs, to do the things that we need to do. Finally, one more slide. I just want to mention something, and I have cards in the back. It's rather overwhelming the amount of information you get. And I read a lot of stuff because I'm trying to keep up. And here's 4 things that, or 5 things that interest me. Civic engagement beyond voting, a lot of you know what it is. You can get their free newsletter. It tells you all about bills. It's a little overwhelming. It's right in the weeds, but it's really good if you want to know. And you can pay $50 a year to support them, and they give you a little bit more information. Arizona Mirror is really great. Free, progressive, sort of good reporting. And I have cards in the back that you can pick up with this information on it. Arizona Agenda is very good as well. I pay for their newsletter because they just went behind a paywall, but they also have some free stuff. Excellent reporting. Capital Times, very expensive, but if you're a geek on all the stuff that goes on in the Capitol, you pay for that. I pay for that. And Blog for Arizona. A lot of you will know Blog for Arizona. They're very involved right here in Pima County. A great blog. So you can pick that up in the back. Last one, please. And it is the last one. Okay, so what's the point here? I like the term. Democracy happens from the ballot up. Vote the entire ballot. Please, please, please. We talked about concurrent resolutions. Why are there so many concurrent resolutions being forced onto the ballot? Because they want everybody to vote no on everything, including the abortion issue. They're trying to confuse the electorate. They do a nice long ballot, people will stop. They will not go to the bottom of the ballot. Please tell everybody to vote the entire ballot. Thank you. I'm on Facebook. If you want to follow me there, I put a lot of content there. For those of you that sort of do social media threads as well. So thank you.